Alright, so I have these shorts from the Modest Brooch, and I like the way the front looks, but on the back I want this to be symmetric. So I am going to click on this LOD 0 and hit Control C, and then I have another Blender window open, and I'm going to hover over the collection here and press Control V. And you can see it copied the reference, the skeleton, and everything. And I'm going to press Control V again so that I have two copies. This first one's going to be my master copy, so I'm going to hide that. So this is if I make any really big mistakes and I have run out of Control Z's. I can just go back to the start, and then everything is fine and nothing bad ever happens. So I'm going to click on my shorts here, and then on this tab is the modifiers tab. So I'm going to click that. Looks like this little wrench guy, and then I'm going to click add modifier, and then hover over generate mirror. And you can see it mirrored the whole shorts, including the front, which is not what I want. As far as I know, the mirror modifier is going to apply to everything. So the way to get around that, I'm going to click the X here to get rid of it. And then I'm going to go to my modeling tab. And I think you can do all of this like in the shading tab or whatever tab you want. I just like clicking the different tabs. It makes me feel cool, like I'm doing something really cool. So I'm gonna press L and highlight this part of the shorts, press delete, and then hit vertices. Same for those bits, and then I should leave that part. So if I press L here, it ends up selecting this entire half. And if I press L here, it selects this entire half. So I'm gonna have to be sneaky about it. And by sneaky, I mean, I'm gonna click the select. It might have you on select box. I like to click and hold and then move down to select lasso. And then I am gonna decide where to cut it off. So I'm gonna click this button here, and it's gonna show me an X-ray mode, and this will let me select all of the vertices, even the ones that are like underneath others. Oh, he loves talking. Yes, I love you too, Mr. Man. Okay, so I'm gonna go, actually select box would probably be better here, so I can have a straight line. So I'm gonna grab all those, and it's probably fine, so we're gonna hit delete vertices. And then I'm gonna click this guy so I can see what I've got going on here. And that's about half. What could possibly go wrong? So I'm on my modifiers here, and I'm gonna click add modifier, generate mirror. Really? Yeah, you're so good at Blender. You could probably teach people better than me. Oh, this would be so awkward if you end up not being able to hear my cat. Okay. So it looks like it has mirrored it, but it looks a little bit wonky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this thing that says bisect. And that looks kind of ugly still. So then I'm going to click this thing that says flip, and I don't super know how it works, but it makes it look different, and I like the way this looks better, so everything is fine. You don't have to understand anything to be able to do it, right? God, anyone who actually knows Blender is probably in so much pain right now. So I think that's good. If it looks bad in game, we can go back and fix it. So, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my master copy and paste it. So now I have these full shorts here. And now we want to get our newly mirrored mesh onto the same mesh as our original. So the way that you do that is make sure you're in object mode. So edit mode and then tab to get to object, and then click on the guy that you like, and then control click the guy you don't, and then hit Control J while hovering over this main box. If you're like hovering over the collection stuff, it won't work. And then you can see it disappeared. So I'm going to hit Control Z, and that is because we did not apply the modifier. Again, I don't know how it works, how Blender decides these things, but if you go here to this little triangle and then click apply, suddenly this is all one mesh instead of a mesh with a modifier. Like I said, I don't know. But I'm gonna do this. Click the guy that I like, click the guy I don't, Control J, and it's actually mirrored this time. I don't need this reference anymore, so I'm just going to delete it. And then we're gonna figure out how gross this looks. So it's actually not too bad. You can see we have a little bit sticking out over here. In just a couple of areas, but that should not be too hard to fix. So if I press L, it's gonna select my whole thing here, which is not exactly what I want. But it's kind of what I want. Okay, I know what I am going to do. Up here where it says select, I'm going to invert, and then I'm going to press H, and it's going to hide everything. That's not what I had selected. So now I only have this part that we mirrored selected. And I'm going to hit Control Z because I don't remember where the weird stuff happens. And by weird stuff, I mean this clipping. So I'm going to make a mental note of here-ish, and then I'm going to press H again. And then I'm going to click here to go into my X-ray view. I'm going to, I want the select lasso, so just click and hold and then hover over that. And I forgot where my thing was, so I'm going to hit Control Z and change my viewport back. And now I remember. So then Control Shift Z to redo those. X-ray mode, so we can select all the vertices. And then I'm going to highlight these and delete them. Something that is nice with hiding and unhiding stuff, if I press Alt H to unhide, it did not delete any of the vertices that were hidden. It is only doing that on stuff that you are able to see. So I probably want to get rid of one more little line here. So I push Control Z to unhide, or sorry, to hide it again, which is just your undo. So you can redo and undo the hiding operation, but just for completion's sake, if I just have this selected and press H, it'll hide everything, and then Alt plus H to unhide. So make sure those are hidden. Make sure I'm in my X-ray guy. I'm just going to grab those and delete the vertices. And then Alt H. And hey, that doesn't look that bad. That doesn't look that bad. Heck yeah. Okay, cool. So then there's a couple areas where I want it to be slightly different. So you can do this a couple of ways. think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna like directly click on these vertices. And I select more than one with control click. I'm gonna hit the move tool over here. I'm just gonna move them. I think that'll be the fastest way to do it. If you don't like the way that that looks, or you want like a little bit more control, I guess less control, but more of like a sculptorly way to do it, you can click on the sculpting tab here and then kind of zoom in. This elastic grab tool is pretty awesome. It will snap onto vertices. So what I like to do in this window, not that one, not that one. Which guy is it? Oh, it is this guy. Okay, so the viewport overlays thingy, I keep clicking off of it. I'm gonna scroll down and click this checkbox on the wireframe. I'm just gonna turn the opacity down a little. I like having this on because it's gonna show me if I try and like do something right here, things might move kind of weird, or with some tools like just nothing can happen sometimes, especially if you have vertices that are really far apart. So I just like being able to see exactly what I'm grabbing. The elastic grab tool is really nice because it will grab your vertex, but also the stuff that's like right around it. So I'm gonna make my selection a little bit bigger. I'm gonna grab, and I'm gonna grab. So it lets you do something very similar to the move tool. Just in a slightly different way that you might feel more comfortable with, or that you feel might give better results. So there's a couple of other things that might be a little wonky, but I don't care. It's probably fine. And if it's not fine, we can mess with it more later. Okay, no, I lied. This pattern overlapping bugs me. So I'm gonna go back into sculpting, and by default, sculpting is gonna have this viewport shading option. Because I care about the patterns lining up everything, I'm gonna click this guy. Also, I like seeing the textures. I might turn the opacity on my wireframe up just so I can see it better since these are dark textures. Let's see. And then there's a couple of ways you can do this. I think probably the best way to do it would be to make a mask, but I don't understand how to do those. Actually, let's maybe... What happens if I do that? What happens if I do that? I have no idea what any of this is doing. Okay, well, I'm not going to do any of that, but basically you can use masks to say, hey, I don't want you to mess with any of these vertices. We'll learn about them one day, but I'm going to go into the modeling here, and basically I am going to go and grab some of these guys and then just move them in. And you can see now it is going to go behind the part of the mesh that's like going this way. This piece of fabric here. Anyway, like I said, this would probably be way easier if you were using the mask in sculpting mode. But we'll figure that out later. And by later, I mean never. So anyway. Let's see. Sometimes you might have to go into wireframe to grab stuff that is already kind of in there. So there is a vertex there. Again, people who actually know how Blender works are rolling. They're dying inside, but it's okay because you don't need to know how things work to be able to do stuff. Anyway, this is gonna be really tedious, so I'm gonna pause and come back when I finish. Okay, another fun tip that I thought of while I'm doing this. I have a really hard time understanding what anything is in wireframe view, so I want to grab something in this area to bring it back. So I'm gonna go to wireframe and then click on one of them and then go back to this view. And it's like, that's not the one I wanted. Go back to wireframe and then maybe it's this one. Sure wasn't. Nope. Anyway, you can keep doing that back and forth if you don't have any sense of spatial awareness like me. You can also click the different select modes here, so I'm going to click this line thing, and then I'll click my line and go back to this, and it's like, oh, the vertex I wanted is all the way over there. So if I click my vertex guy again, it'll select the 2 vertices connected to that line, and then I can just click here, and now I've only got the 1. And then go back here and see how that affects up there. We have the technology. Okay, so I'm gonna look at this in object mode, and I think the pattern's lining up a little better now. Doesn't look like this mirrored part of the mesh is clipping through the unmirrored part, which is what we wanted, but there's a couple of weird little bumps and stuff, like the soul guy here. It's kind of easier to see in edit mode. So I'm going to go to sculpting mode and then click this viewport shading, and it's like, I don't like that a whole lot. So my favorite tool is this draw tool. If you have this plus here, what it'll do is it'll bring your vertices out. But if you have this minus, it'll bring them in. So you can use that for a little bit of spot reducing. Or it's like, I'm gonna make this a little smaller, just a and you can do some manual smoothing out that way. There's also a smooth tool somewhere, but I am not experienced with it. And I find that, like, even when I take the strength down, sometimes it does a lot more than I wanted it to, because it will move the vertices around to get you that smoothness. I actually kind of like it in this case, so I will probably leave that. And then just go back to the shading, double check that I didn't accidentally mess everything up. And it looks like I did a little bit there, so I'm gonna... No, I didn't. I'm telling myself I'm not gonna let it bother me, but I am. So we're gonna go back to modeling. Let's see, what even attaches? I'm actually going to go into the face select and do the same thing I was doing with the line. So go back to wireframe and it's like, interesting. You can also just move the face directly if you don't want to go vertex by vertex. And we just get a little creative Control Z. There we go. Okay, I think that looks like it swooshes in behind that piece a little bit better. Anyway, sometimes it is very much just mess around, find out. And don't forget to zoom out periodically, because sometimes you might be doing something that actually like looks really good up close, and then you zoom out and you're like, I made it real bad. I think that looks okay. So now we are gonna test it in game. Right, so I'm just gonna go to one of my older project files that is already set up for stuff. And I'm gonna look at the meshes here. And I'm also gonna go up here to the part appearance. And then on the part app, I am going to get rid of a bunch of the stuff. So we don't need a collar. We probably want skin. Who needs a shirt? Who needs shoes? It's probably enough. Basically, I just don't want the shirt to be covering up the part of the shorts that I care about. That's a blueprint. That's not what I want. So I'm gonna pull up these shorts. Same shorts, but asymmetric in the back. And I forgot to actually export this from Frosty. So that's kind of important. I'm gonna rename it and then put the slot at 0. And then I'm gonna use Padme's tool. Make some of those. And then click, hold shift, click again. Export with my Frosty selected. Then I'll just leave it as untitled for now. This is why I can never find my files. Then we're gonna go import. Okay, this vertex groups must be limited. I run into this sometimes when I do mirroring or I add extra stuff. So you'll have to delete all of those little LODs that you just made, and then click on your thing, and up here where it says object mode, you're gonna go to weight paint, and then weights, limit total, and then down here for the limit, you're gonna set it to 8, and then go back to object mode, and then make your LODs again. If you have like more than one selected and you try and go into weight paint and limit the stuff, it won't limit it for all the LODs, and then it still won't import. When you're exporting from Blender, it will keep the last settings you used, so you can just re-export stuff really fast, which is nice. So we'll re-import this. Hey! Okay, cool. So, and we're gonna launch, and everything's gonna be fine. Nothing bad ever happens, and every mod works in the first try. Alright, so we're gonna check this out in photo mode. And hey, we got shorts that are symmetric. Let's go to somewhere with like a less busy background. That should be fine. Nope, nope, look this way. Okay. So photo mode, and then, whoops. I will go here and turn the depth of field off, and then use this focal length to get me a better zoom. And hey, that doesn't look that bad. There's a little bit of something weird going on here, which we could kind of see in Blender, and I was ignoring and hoping would go away. But it is what it is. We'll go back and fix that. But the important thing, it's more symmetric than it was before. Ignore this part over here. Everything is fine. Nothing bad ever happens. And, you know, it'll be fine. I am going to go back to Blender real fast. And I want to look at this with the rest of my outfit, so I'm going to click on the shorts test, Control C, go back here, Control V, hide this, and then, okay. So the part that's not symmetric anymore, like up there with the thing, is hidden by the shirt anyway, so it's totally fine. I guess technically you could do all of this in this same Blender file, but I get really confused when I have everything here. So I just do it in a separate one and Control C, Control V stuff. But you can do it all in one if you want. You can do whatever you want. That's kind of the beauty of it. So I'm gonna go back and finish some of this sculpting, messing with a couple of these areas that are a little bit wonky. And once I get the mesh looking mostly how I want it and make sure that it imports into Frosty, then I'll make a fresh Frosty project and do all of the bundle editing, file duplication, and all that. But I don't want to deal with all of that before I know that my meshes are going to work. If you wanted like a really quick way to do this and you don't have a project file already, you could go to, I don't know, let's go with the crows because, yeah. What is, I'll go with like this B3 armor because I know what it is. And it has these cloth meshes. Where's my guy? I swear to God, I know what I'm doing. I'm gonna go find the simple appearance item and make sure. I think this is a rook armor. I think the 3A is the rook one. I have the texture matrix here, and it looks like, yes, the 3A garment cloth is the one that we want. So we go to that 3A, open it, and then you can just try and import your model into here. And then you can, from the simple appearance item, it should lead you to the part blueprint. And then if you go to object, part behavior data, appearance, and alt fem, just get rid of those. And then when you launch the game through here and you put on that outfit, it should only show your mesh item. So even faster way if you just want to check to see if a mesh works. Okay, I forgot to turn off the cloth physics. So if you import it into here and you go through the thing, you gotta find the cloth object blueprint and go down here where it says cloth and turn it off. And then change your activation radius in your blend out guide to 0. And then you gotta launch it. But you get the idea, right? I always check my meshes before I start the project because it's really disheartening to find out your mesh doesn't work when you... Oh, I love doing this to Rook. To find out once you or like almost done with the project, and you have to go back to the first stage, and it's like, I thought I was done. I don't want to fight with this anymore. So, pro tips at the end of a 30-minute video. Okay, bye.